Dragons and beasts, trumpets and seals, a mysterious Babylon and a glorious New Jerusalem. Welcome to the Book of Revelation. Far from being just an ancient doomsday prediction, this final book of the Bible offers profound hope and a cosmic perspective on our world today. Join us for our series, Apocalypse Now, the Book of Revelation, as we unpack apocalyptic imagery, unpack the historical context, and discover why Revelation isn't about predicting when the world ends, but about finding courage to live faithfully in the here and now. Through this series, we'll see how the often misunderstood book reveals God's ultimate victory over evil and extends an invitation to find our place in His great story. The apocalypse isn't just coming, it's already unfolding, and it's better news than you might think.
Welcome back to another episode of Bible Streams. My name is Chris. I am one of the volunteers here on the pod. And I'm joined
You
by...
are the one volunteer.
Yeah, it's true.
Singular.
Joined by two professionals at the table, my colleagues Alex.
Hello.
And Joe.
For the record, that was not me clapping, that was Joe.
Yeah, the familiar voices that bring this podcast to you every fortnight. But
this is the first time this year, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
We are back after a brief hiatus. We're sorry. It's been a period of illness and busyness and things conspiring to prevent us from recording. But we're still here and we're still going through the Book of Revelation.
Yes, persevering.
We're almost there.
We edge closer and closer to the end, both literally and figuratively.
That's what you did there.
Thank you. Picking up on chapter 17 and 18 this week. But before we do that, Joe, would you like to recap? Where were we last episode?
Well, it's I have thought back hard and long for wherever we were, and I don't remember what we talked about, but we did cover chapter 15 and 16, which was the seven angels again with seven more things. There were seven plagues and then seven bowls, which is the third of the seven cycles, which we come to, and the last. And so that kind of brought us through, again, depending on your perspective, either another iteration of seven, so the last, or the same seven from a different perspective. And we've come now to the end of that and to kind of another interlude moment, this in-between space, but because it's potentially the end of the cycles, then something different again. And so, the judgment has been poured out on the world in many different ways, and we come to the seventh time, and we kind of have this moment now that we jump into in today's chapters.
So we've had, as you say, the three cycles of seven, and at the end of each cycle of seven, the seventh thing, whatever that might be, a plague or a bowl or
seal
or trumpet, seems to have a sort of exposition or an interlude or some sort of extended passage. And as you say, we're in that moment now, but it's not just the end of this one. It's also, morphing, merging, sending us into this last part of the whole book, really. Yeah,
as we'll find out today, this kind of finishes all of those cycles. We are introduced essentially to some, we will set ourselves up after this episode to essentially the first new material we've had since about chapter 12, essentially. So so we do wrap up some things here. So it feels like a little bit more of the same, but we're introduced to a few more mysteries and enigmas and riddles in today, which we've had some of before, but some fresh ones today as well. So, Anything to add, Alex?
No, not really. I think that was a beautiful summary. Thank you, Joe. I really appreciated that.
Fine.
Excellent.
Yeah.
But today, yes, we do get long periods of similar kind of content today. So,
well, if all of that was Greek to you, please do go back and listen from the start of our series on Revelation, because it's much easier to follow if you've been on the journey with us. But you're welcome to stay with us today if that's what you want to do. If you're on a long car journey, or
we can't force you to do anything.
Yeah, that's right. We are just here in the studio.
We are in your hands. in your car,
in your ears,
wherever you are.
That's right. But we want you to be part of the conversation. So please reach out to us if you have questions, comments, criticisms. If you just want to roast Alex, which we like to do as well here on the pod.
Right.
That's all right. If it gets retention and people engaged, then I'm happy to play that role.
That's it. You can email us at podcast@riverlifechurch.org.au, and you can also find us on social media on Facebook and Instagram at Bible Streams.
And I'm willing to be approached in person.
Alex is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Joe and I specifically are not.
Yeah. Again, I will take that bullet.
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah.
Which I think is potentially a little bit unfair because like Chris is the newest member of
that is true.
So,
and the volunteer.
You very quickly just rolled over and showed him your soft underbelly.
I think I have seniority on a number of respects, but you know.
Well, I'm not saying you don't, but I'm sad that Alex didn't try.
Age, wisdom.
Well, they go together. So that's not really fair.
True.
Yeah.
Anyway, but please do.
Please, such frivolities.
Please do send us your comments, your feedback. If we get enough questions by the end of the series, we'll run a Q&A episode. But for now, let's jump in to chapter 17 of Revelation. So, Alex, would you like to take us away with chapter 17, maybe just the first part?
I would love to. With the first part being to verse 6, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
First part of verse 6.
First half of verse 6?
Yeah.
Okay. I can make that work for you, Joe.
Thanks.
One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute who sits by many waters. With her, the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. Then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and was glittering with gold, precious stones and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand filled with abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. The name written on her forehead was a mystery: Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of God's holy people, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus."
Well,
there you go.
There's a fair bit in there.
Yes.
Maybe, again, just to situate ourselves contextually. So in the book so far, we have had some beasts.
Yes.
And maybe we talk about the parallels between those beasts and this beast, or maybe they're one and the same. I'm sure we'll establish that. We've also had a woman previously, and in fact, a woman in a wilderness.
Different woman, maybe?
Well, let's maybe go there.
Well, first we start with an angel. We should probably start with...
And it's, as we alluded to, this is coming off the back of the bowl cycle of 7 bowls. So it's an angel, one of the angels that carry the bowls. I'm always interested to know which one.
Yes.
But it doesn't say, unfortunately. No. That's another mystery. Who then announces this judgment upon the great prostitute who sits on many waters.
And it's interesting because it does pick up... it's almost like it's kind of... Again, as we've seen, I think many times we've seen in Revelation, the same thing then described from a different angle. I think we kind of get at least the 7th bowl and probably the 6th bowl kind of replayed in this moment, because the 7th bowl was all about something being poured out onto this great city. And then we get this idea that this figure, this woman, has got the name of a city written on her forehead as well. And so I think there's at least some kind of connection between what's just happened in chapter 16 and this. So it is somehow connected to the 7th bowl, hence what we were saying before. This is kind of this pattern of tailing out of the 7th of something. So we get a bowl angel who comes and starts this story. So yes, he's showing them the judgment of the great prostitute. And so who is this prostitute? That's the question. This lady sitting on a beast in the wilderness, but on waters, which is obvious from the initial where he's taken to.
We got told later, though.
Yes.
The text does tell us what the waters are.
Yes, but the fact that it says he was carried to look at, he was seated on many waters, and then he's in the wilderness and somehow. Yeah. It's the wilderness with waters. It seems weird.
Well, let's take each part of the imagery one at a time.
Too much.
The waters. What could the waters possibly mean?
Well, I would like to head us down to verse 15. Where the angel says, "The waters you saw where the prostitute sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages." So
There we go.
I'm going to go with that option. But
That's a good option.
I mean, that kind of explains it. It's sitting over the totality of all the people that this beast and the prostitute have kind of influenced and are affecting. So it's pretty universal in that kind of language.
So this is starting to paint a picture of who this figure might be.
So a representative of power then, is it? Or
I think you can probably say that.
power and position?
Yeah.
I think it's possible.
At some level, yeah.
Possible also there may be a secondary allusion to the geographies of maybe some of the cities that some of the real historical cities that this figure is associated with. And if we think about cities like Babylon, famously sits on two major waterways, the Tigris and the Euphrates. We think about Rome, famously sits on the Tiber. And then also the idea of water, and we might see this a little bit later in chapter 18, water being a source or a means of economic prosperity and projection of power through trade, through navies and military, all those sorts of things, whether that be the river, whether that be the sea, all sort of tied up together.
The Bible does, especially in the Old Testament, does definitely associate Babylon with water quite a bit through Israel's history, like thinking about, is it weeping by the waters of Babylon? So it comes up a few times with that kind of phrasing.
So
There's
going to be a lot
by Boney M.
There's going to be a few musical allusions as we go through this chapter, I suspect.
More from Chris than anyone.
Yeah. He's just foregrounding his own.
That's
what's to come.
okay. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Euro disco and metalcore are famously my two interest areas.
They are.
Yeah.
And show tunes.
Yes.
Chris's triumvirate. So this figure, which we know from this passage, somehow connected to Babylon. Waters is people and groups. This power structure over Babylon. There's something that is powerful about this figure because kings of the earth come and commit adultery with this figure. And so we're not talking about actual physical acts here. This is again an allusion to what we've seen throughout the Old Testament, probably most famously portrayed in Hosea's writings about this idea that selling of oneself, one's affection, one's allegiance, one's obedience to something other than God.
Yeah. So at the core of it, it's covenant unfaithfulness, and at the risk of that watering down the impact of what we mean. Yeah, it's fundamentally the turning away of worship and sort of allegiance to its rightful owner, being God, the creator, to whatever else, the powers, the riches, the systems of the world, effectively.
Yeah, and the prophets pretty frequently use like prostitution as a metaphor for political alliance when Israel makes political alliance with other nations that violate the covenant faithfulness they're meant to have with God alone. So
is it Isaiah especially talks about the period where there's a playoff between Assyria and Egypt and the kings of Israel sort of spend their time politically machining what they're going to do next, and the prophet describes that as prostituting themselves, trying to get the best deal.
Yeah.
Well, and Jeremiah as well.
And Jeremiah.
A lot of conversation about that. The whole back end's very long, and that I've just read it.
There you go.
Lots of chapters of that. Yes, and so this idea of the covenant of marriage being broken as the metaphor for any other covenant that's been treated without faithfulness, and this idea of wine making people drunk in the midst of that too.
We've had that previously in quite a few chapters. Yep.
Chapter 14, there's a bit about the wrath of the wine of God's wrath being poured out, and the nations drinking it. So it goes into the wilderness being a metaphor of something else as well from Scripture. Hosea features being taken into the wilderness for judgment.
Yeah.
So it sits there. Ezekiel, there's a big
also redemption though in Hosea, but
correct. Yes. Yeah. But and this is the thing. So when we say taken into the wilderness for judgment, we initially think negative.
Yeah.
And potentially here negative too. But it's an interesting way that this figure is dealt with. Because we see them kind of lamenting the fall soon, which doesn't seem right because she seems so terribly evil. And so, anyway. But yes, I think judgment biblically is not always judgment towards destruction, but it's the vindication of right and the judge and the finding guilty of what's wrong.
Yes,
so it always includes both sides. We would usually just catch it in the negative.
Yeah.
There is a setting up too, I think, of the wilderness scene, paralleling what we saw in chapter 12 with the woman in that case representing, I think we spoke about archetypal Israel or the people of God, being preserved in the wilderness in that case. And I think that sets itself up against now, as you say, the wilderness scene of judgment. And as a further setting up of that imagery, paralleling the bride who is to come. And that's probably a good opportunity now to talk about the importance, or what do you think the importance of the femaleness of the imagery that we're about to get in terms of the prostitute? Because it can sit a little uncomfortably, especially for our modern sensibilities. I don't know. You guys are looking at me a little bit concerned.
No, I'm just seeing what hole you'll dig that we have to fill in for you.
Well, that's it. So what I am sort of picking up on is I think the femaleness of the image we're about to get, the archetype we're about to get of the prostitute is important insofar as it parallels the image of the bride and the other city that is about to come. But what we're not trying to say is that this is some uniquely sort of female vice that's being put upon the city or the people or the judgment. So if you're ever tempted to go down that path, please don't. That's not where the author is trying to go, and it's not where we want to go either.
Correct. And I think too, just knowing culturally in the ancient world that cities were often depicted feminine, as female and feminine. So
as Jerusalem frequently is.
Jerusalem frequently is. I mean, Rome has its own goddess, the civic goddess Roma.
Exactly right.
Et cetera, et cetera.
So he's carried into the spirit carries him into the wilderness, and he sees this woman sitting on a scarlet beast with blasphemous names and 7 heads and 10 horns. Here we go. Numbers again.
Yep.
What's going on?
Well, we've talked about the number of these and what they are. Like we've in previous visions and back in Daniel as well, horns signifying power, or in this case, like kind of kings or partakers of that power, and 7 number of completion. So it's a big bad 7.
Well, I think we're clearly meant to associate this beast with the beast of the sea that we've read about a few chapters ago, right? It's the same. I think there's only one part of the description that's different, and that's the fact that it's scarlet.
Yes,
red.
Yeah. Do we even get told the color of it previously?
No, I don't think so.
I think it's just a new added detail, isn't it?
But everything else, there's 7 heads, 10 horns, all the
matches
same.
Up.
So we do assume it's that beast.
Yep.
Again, so now this is kind of the 3 of them together. Well, we had the 3 before, which didn't include the female figure here.
Well, I think we're sort of assuming that the dragon is still behind everything. The dragon representing Satan. Empowering all that's going on. I think where we landed was the beast of the land is almost, again, an enabler of the beast of the sea, right? And the beast of the sea represents, a number of things, but at its core, the city, which is basically the ruling system.
Yeah.
The national, well, not even national, the international imperial power that oppresses the saints, the people of God.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think the very next verse, in verse 4, which read out, by what this figure is wearing, shows us that this is true. Wearing traditional royal and priestly clothes and colors. So scarlet, purple, adorned with golden jewels, holding a golden cup, a name written on the forehead. These are all kind of loaded imagery from both non-biblical royalty and biblical priestly lines. So this is a loaded image at this point.
And also, I think all those things, and to tie it into the prostitute imagery that the author uses, I was doing a lot of reading on that industry in the Roman Empire specifically, and there's like a lot of levels to it. Like you can be a very low-class, run-of-the-mill prostitute, or you can be like a courtesan, you're assigned to or owned by a specific person in power, and you would be dressed like this. You would be dressed in a lot more finery, and your duties would be very different. But I was reading that she's referred to the name, I think it's in the Greek, I guess, referred to a name of like a much lower kind of level prostitute, but is adorned very differently, like a higher in the class system. So again, encompasses like the entire system of the society there.
Well, it kind of sets up more of that irony, right, that we see, and even the sense in which I think, Babylon is often describes themselves historically as a queen or as an enduring city, and Rome too as an eternal city, and this this ironic distinction between how this power presents itself, and at its core, right, presents itself as it's the ultimate power in the world, the anti-Messiah in a sense, up against the true God and the true Messiah, but is revealed to be, really
right at the very bottom.
rotten,
Yeah.
right at the bottom, and eventually
Not the equal of.
brought down by its own sin and the weight of sort of all the evil that it's done.
Yeah.
And the description does echo a little bit of what we see about Ezekiel writing about the king of Tyre in chapter 27 of Ezekiel.
Yeah, 28? 27.
27.
27? Okay, 27.
And then there's this bit. This is interesting. So Jeremiah 51, verse 7. Babylon was a golden cup in the Lord's hand, making all the earth drunken. The nations drank of her wine before the nation. Therefore, the nations went mad. It's like, oh, okay, golden cup, Babylon. Pretty. Yeah. So John's playing on.
He's
all
borrowed
this
that
imagery.
one.
Yeah. This is all very familiar to probably
Yeah.
the first readers.
Yeah, and even the precious stones and pearls and things like that we see throughout Revelation as well, to come, especially in the last couple of chapters. But yeah, it's definitely setting themselves up as the opposite of that, or at least they think.
Yeah, it's definitely parody.
Yeah, parody.
But it's going to be all revealed that this is an imitation and a parody and a cheap copy, a knockoff of the good, the real, and the good.
Yeah.
Spoilers, but whereas this bride, prostitute, and city simply puts on the stones, the new bride that is to come is built from these precious things.
Streets made of gold.
There it is. Not wearing gold, but made of gold.
Yeah.
Not adorned with pearls, but gates made of pearls. Yeah. Okay. I suppose the other thing is his shock at the name and her state of drunkenness, or the nation's state of drunkenness. Well, no, she's drunk on the blood of the nations. So,
the blood of the saints, is it, or the blood of all the nations?
No, the saints at this point. Sorry, but the name on the head,
mystery. Although I think your translation says the name is a mystery. The name is Babylon the Great.
Was a mystery, and then just says it. Yeah.
Mine says, I think the name is mystery, Babylon the Great.
And mine says written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great.
Yeah, because obviously when we read it is a mystery, but then we're told the name straight away. How do we reconcile that?
Well, this is it. Yeah. So I think back in chapter 2, we had reference to mystery again. So this idea of mystery is not that it's a secret, but it's that the imagery is encoded to actually convey the message in some ways more clearly and more deeply than you would if you just said the words. This is Rome, guys.
And the other connected bit to that, particularly in the way Paul uses this concept, is that when he talks about this, it's his revealing of a mystery. So it has been hidden until this point, but it's not a mystery anymore because I told you. It just was prior to now. So we could see it in that light. So there's this revelation that the power now behind everything is being revealed, but it's no surprise. It's Babylon, everyone. It's like, we knew it would be. So there's that sense of it too, I think, where it's the unveiling of the mystery that everyone saw coming pretty plainly. Or maybe I just peeked at the end already.
No, well, I think that's it. Let's go home.
The names on her forehead.
Ripping off
Exodus. And I was going to say, to speak to the cultural moment as well, this is common practice with a lot of slavery situations throughout the ancient world, but particularly in the Roman Empire. Being branded on the forehead was a sign of shame or ownership in the world of slavery. And like we've talked about with the irony, it sets herself up as a queen, but really her transgression and her identity is like revealed to the whole world on her forehead. And it will, it does parody the name that we see inscribed on the forehead and on the thigh of Christ later on as well.
Yeah.
And the name is Babylon the Great.
Yeah.
The mother of prostitutes and mother of the abominations of the world.
Which is a bit
intense.
Yeah.
And so not so much in the sense of, I think, mother as like a progenitor, but as an archetype, right?
Correct, yeah.
This city representing this system of power sums up kind of all the evil in the world.
But I do think that there's a sense as well that this malevolent force is also in some ways birthing, like it is not the creator, but
self-sustaining,
some level of originator or empower of things. So like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's the role of the dragon, right? That sits behind it.
Do you mean like influencing and drawing into joining in the evil, or do you mean like the one
like,
instigating
almost like
it.
nurturing evil in
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
in that motherly way. So
Yeah.
while it's there, they're kind of creating something more than was there before. Like a mother would cause a child to grow and, you know, create a safe place for it to grow.
Yeah.
There's that sense. And as we talked about before, being, you know, the idea that the dragon's behind the scenes and it has agents doing the kind of upfront work, maybe in that sense too. That's just my take on it. We're allowed to disagree.
Yeah.
It is maybe also possible to stretch the metaphor too far either
Correct.
way.
So not infinitely plastic.
I don't think there's a heap of like difference between
No.
like the roles of all three in a way.
Yeah.
Like there is, but it's very small margins there, I think.
But maybe it's a good opportunity to pause then, because when we talk about this is Babylon, what do we actually mean? Like, are we talking about, again, depending on the interpretive framework that we bring to bear on Revelation, are we talking about the future sort of recoming or reappearing of this ancient city, this enemy of God's people? Are we talking about some sort of spiritual reality that maybe just kind of continues through the powers of the world, whoever happens to be ruling at the time? Are we talking about some sort of future Antichrist figure or city or nation or power that is to come that takes on the spirit of Babylon? I mean, what are we talking about?
Well, that comes back to your interpretive framework, which we've talked about a few times. But if you're just tuning in now, maybe this is new to you. But I think if we look at that kind of that futurist perspective, that, you know, this is all future prophecy and we're going to see it kind of fulfilled at one day. There's the expectation that this Babylonian force, city, geopolitical, economic power will come to the fore and be aligned with the Antichrist. And so basically, you know, we're constantly aware in that schema and framework of whichever is the most powerful thing, which might be tipped against the church and faith, is the Babylon of the day. So, you know, it's
Yep, could be anything.
yeah, randomly, depending on your perspective, it's, you know, it's the Vatican, it's America, it's Russia, it's, you know, whichever geopolitical movement is against whatever you believe in your interpretive schema, you know, that's what you pick as this Babylon figure. So if you got that kind of futurist idea, so that's constantly reading this kind of into what you're seeing in the news, often also connected then in that framework with, they'll try and do something probably in the actual geographic vicinity of Babylon in the Middle East. And there'll be this kind of, again, this antagonist towards Jerusalem on the other side of the Fertile Crescent, like there has been throughout history.
Yep.
So yeah, there's that.
Preterist.
Yes.
That's so seeing everything as already,
Yep.
full preterist already completed throughout history. And so I guess some would probably see that as actually Babylon.
Well, probably more sits as Rome, right?
Rome, I guess,
Preterist.
yeah, but
we are
that's spoilers.
going to unpack a little
I
bit
know,
more in
but
the
like
next bit. Yeah.
full preterism, would it fully see it as Rome? I guess, yeah, probably it would, yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
playing on that again, well, if we jump to the idealist view, which is this kind of spiritual, like everything's not necessarily directly a metaphor, but is generally applicable no matter what kind of time you find yourself in. It plays on the figure of Babylon throughout the biblical narrative.
Yep.
And Babylon has always stood as, or, you know, been postured as this human expression of wanting to be divine, wanting to compete with God, wanting to stand in opposition to God. So right back in Genesis, you know, the Tower of Babel, we're going to control God, do God our way, not God's way. And so this kind of oppositional space. So that kind of fits into that.
Yep.
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 Is that all of them? Historicist?
Historicist,
I mean,
kind of like
again, pick anything through history.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
pagan Rome,
Yeah.
the medieval
Yeah.
popes, you know, whatever you want.
A strict, I think to your question before about a strict preterist, like a full preterist view, I think it would specifically be the Roman Empire of
Yeah,
Domitian's
and
day.
that's it. And it was that.
that-
yeah.
Nero or Domitian, depending on how we read the next bit.
Yeah.
Whereas we might also talk about having a somewhat middling position where the author is definitely alluding to Rome here. I think we can probably all agree on that. But then to what extent is there also potentially a future or
An enduring ideal.
an enduring
The partial
ideal that
preterist
extends
view.
beyond that. Yeah, and we usually call that a partial preterist view, where we're aware of it's referring to something in the historical past, but might also be foreshadowing or prefiguring like you said, Chris, an idea that endures beyond it and could be found again in a second event or in multiple or just as an idea. Yeah.
Or conceptually, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
So-
Rome plus view.
Yeah. So
I like that, yeah.
easier to consume than partial preterist. Yeah. Rome plus.
Awesome. Shall we take a break before we jump into the next section?
Yes.
All right, so we'll pick up second half of verse 6, heading to the end of chapter 17. And when I saw her, I was greatly astonished. Then the angel said to me, "Why are you astonished? I will explain to you the mystery of the woman and of the beast she rides, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast which you saw once was, now is not, and yet will come up out of the abyss and go to its destruction. The inhabitants of the earth whose names have not been written in the book of life from the creation of the world will be astonished when they see the beast, because it once was, now is not, and yet will come. This calls for a mind with wisdom." Great verse. "The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. They are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. But when he does come, he must remain for only a little while. The beast who once was, and now is not, is an 8th king. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. They have one purpose and will give their power and authority to the beast. They will wage war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will triumph over them because he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And with him will be his called, chosen, and faithful followers." Then the angel said to me, "The waters you saw where the prostitute sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to hand over the beast to their royal authority until God's words are fulfilled. The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth."
Oof.
Don't you just love it when the text explains it all to you perfectly?
So clear.
So clear.
You
Just
totally
got it all
understand
laid
it.
out for
We can
us,
just
yeah.
move on to the next section now.
Let's just move on.
Of course, we know who was and who is not and who will be.
Yeah, we get that.
And
a
the
few
5
times,
kings
don't
that
we?
have come, and that's all perfectly
That's all we need to know.
plain.
Although, fortunately, some of that has been explained to us previously. So that's
Correct.
been-
Oh, let's go. Let's jump
It's
in.
not spoilers. We did it.
I know.
episodes
I
ago.
started to say spoiler, and I realized we've already spoiled it. So,
Well,
but
I
he
think
marvels greatly.
He does marvel. He's astonished. Well,
Yes.
see, I suspect that might have more to do with the blood of the saints being drunk.
Correct.
And that's a fairly shocking scene.
I agree,
Let's not gloss over that.
Well, the angel seems to just be like, "Why are you astonished?" But, I mean,
Yeah, the angels.
I feel like it's pretty justified. I'm with John here.
But it's a shocking scene,
Yeah.
if nothing else, because also this revelation that this power is connected to this concept, that this is all the things we've talked about. So then the angel starts to unpack. What do we need to pick up here?
Well, I mean, let's hit on the low hanging fruit first. So the last verse, if the previous bit didn't give it away, it definitely gives it away. What we've all talked about so far, at least at the surface level, but in terms of its historical context, how John's audience would have understood it, this city is Rome.
Correct.
Right?
Big time.
Rome is the new incarnation of Babylon. It is the city that rules over the kings of the earth. It is the city that sits on 7 hills.
Yep, verse 9.
It is the city who, as we've talked about previously, has had a line of, in theory, 7 kings, and there's been this discussion about this weird sort of prophecy that the people in the eastern half of the empire especially feared, where one of them, which was particularly bad, a guy called Nero, might come back in the future and
Either didn't die or
With the Parthians, he's
resurrected.
coming.
and might wipe out everything
With the Parthians, yeah.
with the Parthians. Yeah. So
The Scorpion guys.
Yeah.
So clearly, if you hadn't landed it yet in your mind, you're supposed to land it now.
It's Rome.
Exactly right. But what's the deal with the it was and is not and is to come?
Well, I think that's the allusion to Nero, right?
Well, is it?
In part, yeah. I think there's a little
I think in
illusion
part
there.
is
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
Yeah, there's more to it though.
There's heaps to it. Obviously, it parodies what we
think
know
that's right,
of
yeah.
Christ, the one who was, who is, and is to come. And so it's pretty clear flipping of that. I also found in a bit of research that it is pretty similar to a lot of funeral epigrams. So it's like setting up the beast's downfall and, we're about to hold a funeral for it. But here's some that I found. I was not, I came into being, I will not be anymore. Imagine having that written on your tombstone.
Okay.
Or this one, I was not, I am not, I do not care. That one's good.
Mic drop.
But yeah, you can see it's pretty similar to a couple of those as well. But I think a bit of foreshadowing there for the beast. Yeah.
But the idea too that people will be kind of shocked when this happens, and like these kind of counterfeit miracle kind of parody things, I think is significant as well.
Yeah. I think that the allusion to Nero though is definitely
yes.
in that
I
as
think
well.
so.
Yeah.
The Nero figure as the parody messiah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. How well to ask the question though, because it is fairly clearly, I think, saying that this image is Rome, and even to the point where when the angel speaks, they're using the word which we then translate as apocalypse. So it's using the verb I'm unveiling to you this mystery. However, do we think that there's an element too of maybe like how Daniel's got his multiple beasts or the statues which have this kind of rolling concept of empire building on empire, and many of the commentaries I was reading also said that, well, it's hard to graft these kings neatly onto the Roman emperors because of various things. It's just not neat, particularly with the eighth one who's going to come for a short period of time, because that kind of ruins the picture. Could these be then pictures of, again, it doesn't map neatly, but like in Daniel's picture, could these be like Egypt and Babylon and the Medians and the Persians and the Rome, like these kind of rolling empires as well. Also representative of the power structures of the world that stand in opposition to God.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think it invites us to necessarily, like you said, specifically identify 7 kings of Rome. And at the same time, I don't think it specifically invites us to identify 7 world empires in succession. But like you said, maybe it sets up a pattern of this summarizes imperial rule, or yes, a power structure, and it summarizes that, and so we can ascribe it to that.
Well, I think as far as the 7 kings of the city and then the 10 kings of the world that come to serve it, I think it's clearly supposed to be tying it to Daniel.
yes, correct.
So, I don't think John particularly cares much whether you can find 7 exact kings or 10 exact. Yeah. Because the theory about the 10 kings is like, is it like client kingdoms of Rome? Is it like provinces of Rome? You can't again, neatly make it fit either way, but correct, I don't think it matters.
Yeah. And how much does the year of the 4 emperors count towards one or multiple? Like it gets all crazy.
Yeah, none. It's just one.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Did the people in Rome even think of them as emperors, for heaven's sake? Anyway. I think you're right. I think it's really, John's trying to take all of these things that the people have lived in, these horrific times, these world powers. You got to remember too that the covenant people of God lived in the crossroads of the ancient world. So every power that wanted to have a shot at being in power came through their land. The Greeks coming down, the Babylonians coming across, the Egyptians coming up. Like everyone's fighting everyone on their doorstep and often in their backyard. And so this is very familiar to everyone. It's this idea that there's world powers that congregate together and wreak havoc on everything normal. And the people who don't know what to do just jump in. Yep, that one looks impressive. We'll worship them. We'll follow them because we're terrified of dying. So it's John's wrapping that up neatly, I think, as he can, with maybe not the right numbers for what happened in history, but the clear numbers biblically that represent wholeness or fullness or completeness or totality.
I was reading as well that Roman historians themselves referred to their early history as being spanned by 7 kings, as a summary, even though there was definitely more. They just said,
the kings of
7
Rome
kings,
prior to the Republic,
exactly. And they just used that as a staple number, even though in reality it was probably more. So, and I know we breezed past it earlier, but just for anyone who wasn't aware, the 7 hills.
Yes. Those are real, actual.
Those are real 7 hills. Do you guys? I've got them written down here. Do you want to do a little pop quiz? Do you think you could name all 7?
Not all 7.
I knew I could name 2. I got 2.
There's the Capitoline.
Yep. And what's the other one we can all name?
Hang on.
Oh, come on, guys! I
it
got
starts
2.
with S, and I'm trying to remember.
Oh, that's not the one I got.
No, I was is the Severine.
Yeah, Severine. That's
not one of the ones I have.
No, okay, maybe that's not right. What's the S one you have?
The Aventine.
Aventine's
one.
Yeah.
You might be thinking of the Celian, which begins with a C.
No, I was thinking of
Esquiline.
Okay, yeah.
I thought Palatine.
The Palatine.
You would have got for sure. Yeah, sure. And then there's the Viminal and the Quirinal.
Yeah.
But that's not just made up.
That wasn't 7, was it?
Palatine, Aventine, Capitoline, Celian. Caelian, Esquiline, Viminal, Coronal.
Okay.
There you go.
But yes, Rome is built on 7 real hills. So when we see 7 hills, we can pretty easily associate that with Rome. And that was very well known about Rome. Yeah.
Yes, everyone knew, except for us remembering their names.
Yeah.
I've yet to go to Rome, so I plead.
Does that mean
that's my option out?
Does this mean that Sydney is the new Babylon? Because they've got the 7 hills, don't they?
Do
Do they?
I don't know.
I didn't know that.
Okay. Are you just making that up?
I don't know, but I've heard. Isn't there like is it in a northern, like there's the hills sort of district, and there's, they talk about it like I don't know. Maybe I'm making that
Quite
up
possible.
as a filthy Queenslander.
I won't be
maybe
going to
I'm
Sydney
just-
then. Yeah.
Well,
that's
again,
just
that's your futurist view, right? We're just looking for another Rome.
That's
now.
right.
Sydney's the new Rome. There we go. It's just apologies to all of our New South Welshmen listeners and women.
no apologies.
No
Please-
apologies.
whether
Please don't leave.
It might be
No,
Maroon propaganda, but it doesn't matter.
Well, as we said off air, she's wearing purple and red, which could be seen as maroon in some light.
Yeah.
So, that goes the opposite way for what we want.
Yeah, that's
doesn't
not.
it?
Yeah, no, scratch that. Thank you.
Mix them together, it doesn't
let's
come
keep
up
going.
with blue. Let's go. Should not make a lot of this. But so we get this kind of 8th figure who appears, who kind of sits in this Antichrist role, this next king. Do we see that as the fulfillment of these earthly kings that stand in opposition to God? Is this 8th king who's kind of going to be that picture?
Sorry, Chris is just showing us confirmation
It's
that
just fact
Seven
checked.
Hills is indeed a suburb in Greater Sydney.
Oh, it's Seven Hills, the suburb. Yes, it's on the way to Castle Hill. You get off at the Seven
Sorry,
Hills train station.
if you just said it was a suburb,
Sorry.
Joe would have known what you're talking about.
No.
all
I
along.
just was thinking, yes, it's a train station. I know. I've got off the train.
Oh, so you've been there recently?
Yeah, not recently.
Okay.
No. In my time of exile and persecution, I was there. No.
Okay.
I forgot about that. Yeah, Seven Hills Station.
The
Yeah.
8th king.
Yes, the 8th
Yes,
king.
yes.
Chris, tell us about the 8th king. We've got to get him off his Sydney conspiracy theory.
Well, so my understanding is the 8th king is this anti-Messiah, parody Messiah figure. Because he's only there for a little while. It's this idea that he was one of the 7 previously. He comes back for a period and then is judged effectively along with it. And we get this idea that the judgment of the city doesn't take very long at all.
No.
So
Yep.
that's kind of I see that as the most likely understanding, but I think it's not set in stone.
No. But this idea too that it's about to be judged. They've got these 10 kings who are not yet received royal power. They're going to get it. They're going to fight as one against the Lamb. They're going to make war on the Lamb. So we are seeing this kind of polar. The forces are coming together in battle and fighting, and so this kind of leader who's again somewhat trying to be in the shape and style of the Lamb, but coming against the Lamb with his own rulers coming against the saints. You again kind of see this Armageddon style
Battle of Narnia kind of thing.
Yeah. Which is, but very clearly, I think John's trying to say it's not going to be much of a fight.
No. It does seem, though, from the description of the 10 kings that they act more like a coalition than successive kings.
Oh, yes.
Which is
I think so.
but in Daniel interpretation, the 10 is like more successive. But here it seems like it's more of, they're given power. What, does it say for an hour? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, again, we've talked about like the briefness of the battle potentially, like, and that doesn't have to be a literal time, but like how quick this victory will be for the Lamb. So they all get to show up for one battle together. That's good.
Yeah.
But
I think
won't go well.
the 10 kings here are a coalition. The
but
7 kings and horns and stuff
could
earlier
be
are
successive.
more like Daniel, I think. But we get the title of the Lamb very clearly spoken out here as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he wins. That's cool. And he's joined by his called, chosen, and faithful followers.
Yep. Anything else to say about that? Or do we move on to the fact that he wins and there is ramifications then for this
Ramifications.
the prostitute, the figure.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's desolate and naked. Flesh is devoured. Flesh is burned up with fire.
So, I mean, I couldn't confirm this. I mean, I could confirm. So I understand that the public sort of shaming by stripping naked was a fairly common punishment for adultery, prostitution, that sort of thing.
Also for deposed rulers.
Yeah. The burning, I did read somewhere that said for very sort of serious sexual crimes, you could be burned at the stake type of thing. I couldn't confirm that anywhere.
I couldn't find anything on that.
But yeah, maybe it's just wishful thinking. That's probably the wrong term, because I know that we wish that on anyone. But
I think the burning with fire might be better applied just to the metaphor, to like a city.
Yeah.
Like a city is ravaged by a fire more than an individual might be in this case. But
one commentary did suggest this could be linked to like covenantal curse imagery from Torah, so Leviticus and Deuteronomy, that kind of idea that this is God's punishment for those who stand against his covenant. It's interesting though that the prostitute's own people turn on her in this moment. So there's even just this,
but not even just the own people. Like it's the beast and the kings. So
the 10 kings.
It's almost like just self-defeating, right? The system or the city is so corrupt that it just devours itself, and there's no actual, all this wealth and power and everything that they've accumulated actually has certainly brought them no joy, but has brought them no security, they've set themselves up as God, but there's no eternality. It just all collapses in on itself, effectively.
But also that kind of providential work of God, where like we'd see in the Old Testament, where God uses the Assyrians as his agent of judgment, but themselves not being righteous, them actually then reaping their own rewards in that sense. God, it says, God put into their hearts to carry out his purpose.
Yeah. And
so this idea that God's using themselves as their own agents of judgment, essentially giving you over to what you've decided you want.
I think it also contrasts what the people of God are called to, to die for their cause, to endure the persecution to death. Like that kind of loyalty and fidelity is like mirrored in the fickleness where they turn on each other straight away, and like you said, agents of their own destruction. I also thought the eat her flesh, leave her naked, I reminded me a lot of Jezebel.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Thrown out the window, accused of prostitution leading the nation astray and being unfaithful, flesh eaten by dogs.
Devoured. Yep.
Yeah. I thought that was
interesting.
Straight up for me.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. There's just so many layers of what John's trying to allude to here as he kind of wraps. Yeah. And of course, just remember, John didn't realize he was writing the last book of the Bible. So he didn't know, but the way that he's wrapping up the whole redemptive narrative and the covenantal storyline. And so he is alluding to so much of what's come before, because there is this sense of, while he's not writing the last book, he is writing a vision of tying up the story. Yeah. And so it makes sense that he's bringing so many of these threads together in this moment.
Yep.
So it finishes with, that woman you saw is the great city that has dominion over the kings of the earth. Which sounds ambiguous, but I think it comes back to that idea that while we see Rome, we see Babylon, we see all these places, we are still talking not about a physical location, but about
imperial rule.
Yeah. There's a quote, I think, that Keena had from a fellow named William Stringfellow, which is a great name.
What a great name.
That's a great name.
Says that, yes, what this sums up is the essential version of the demonic in triumph in a nation is what this woman on the beast, the city, represents.
It's nice.
It's not nice, but it's
a nice
tidy.
quote.
Yeah. It's not nice, Alex.
No, that's not what I meant. Yeah.
Well, that wraps up 17. So now we've got a time to jump into a weird response to the fall of Babylon.
Let's pick up in chapter 18. After this, I saw another angel coming down from heaven. He had great authority, and the earth was illuminated by his splendor. With a mighty voice he shouted, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling for demons and a haunt for every impure spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable animal. For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her adulteries. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries." Then I heard another voice from heaven say, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues. For her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes. Give back to her as she is given. Pay her back double for what she has done. Pour her a double portion from her own cup. Give her as much torment and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself. In her heart she boasts, I sit enthroned as queen. I am not a widow. I will never mourn. Therefore, in one day her plagues will overtake her. Death, mourning, and famine. She will be consumed by fire. For mighty is the Lord God who judges her.
There it is. So kind of get this angelic pronouncement of the judgment is done. It's all over.
Well, that's the first part. I think the second part is we've got a voice from heaven, another voice, which to date, when we have a disembodied voice from heaven, we've always ascribed that to God himself.
Yes. Well, and even more so in verse 4.
Yeah.
Because the voice says, my people.
Yeah.
So it's a dead giveaway.
But let's start on that top bit.
Correct,
For me, the thing that stands out the most is all of these allusions to Old Testament prophet kind of motifs about carrion animals and unclean places and
also just
desolate places, fallen places,
Or even just the phrase fallen is from Isaiah.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of...
Sorry, I had to
going across his song.
It's my Guitar Hero days catching up with me.
I can't remember which commentary I read, but essentially they said they're describing a moral Chernobyl.
Yeah, right.
So
okay.
Yeah, like that's actually pretty evocative imagery.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to read a verse here, Isaiah 21:9. Fallen is Babylon, and all the images of her gods lie shattered on the ground. So
here it is.
And then here's Isaiah 13. Wild animals will lie down there, and its houses will be full of howling creatures. There ostriches will live, and their goat demons will dance. Hyenas will cry in its towers, and jackals in the pleasant places. And those are just the ones referencing Babylon. There's heaps of similar Old Testament prophetic images about other cities and enemies of Israel being inhabited by different unclean creatures and desolate waste and things like that. So
yeah, well, the lament for a destroyed city is a reasonably common literary feature of the ancient world, but this is a bit more intense than that. It's almost like a curse, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And we get this weird kind of combination of, again, three more figures: nations, kings, and merchants, which we'll get a bit more of that.
Oh, just a bit more
in the next little bit. So it's pretty intense. It's pretty wild, and setting a scene for what we're about to, like we said before in verse 4, of God calling his people out of that place.
Yeah,
which is interesting. I think are we seeing again another cycle of what we've already seen, like in the finality of judgment. There's a freeing of God's people from this.
Well, it's because it's interesting. So in chapter 3, right, we've got all the people who were enriched and emboldened and empowered by their association with city, but then who were also complicit in the downfall, as we just finished in the previous chapter. Then sitting here mourning the downfall, right?
Yeah.
So there's this they're just so intoxicated by the system of oppression that even though they contributed to it, they are left sort of despondent and there's just no happy ending there to be found. On the other hand, we've got this call for God's people to come out. And I think if we look back to chapters 2 and 3, we had 2 of the churches, right, that were written to specifically, who themselves are enriched by this same system.
Yeah.
And are warned that you are becoming complicit in this. You need to step out. So there's a bit of a dichotomy set up there, I think.
The whole thing just reminds me very much of, I don't know if you've seen The Big Short. The whole thing of like, they ruined the system and then were shocked that the system fell apart and blamed the system for letting it happen, and yet lost things. It's just many modern parallels.
Yes.
I think the second half of this the warning here from verse 4 onwards, I think pretty heavily draws on exile motifs from the Old Testament, the remnant, obviously the association with Babylon, which Israel did physically spend time in exile there. Just that phrase, "Come out of her, my people," that's from this wilderness back into like your promised land in a way, like just drawing on that motif now. Well,
and then mentioning plagues, saying come out, plague exactly. Sounds like coming out of Egypt, the deliverance of the Exodus.
So we get that more and more. And we get this kind of pay her back double that we've had in previous chapters as well. So is that like totality of judgment? Is that...
Well, I think it alludes to what Joe was referring to earlier about, previously the city has been an agent of judgment, but now is actually receiving... judgment itself for the evil that has been done.
So the symmetry of judgment,
is a little bit of just desserts, lex talionis.
Lex talionis.
Is it? I don't know.
I think in a way.
Yeah, I think so. Do you need to explain what that is for people, Alex?
Eye for an eye.
Yeah, okay, go.
Yeah.
Cool. Yep.
Get what you deserve. But it's a biblical principle in a way.
It
the
is.
Old Testament.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
And her sins are heaped up as high as heaven. I mean, it sounds like Babylon, Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel, yeah.
So all of that.
It strikes me also too as kind of that idea from Genesis where, the judgment on Canaan is withheld because the sins have not reached their fullness yet. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, okay, they've reached their fullness now, guys. It's time to do something about that, which I think also aligns well with that motif we saw earlier about the saints crying out for vindication, and then finally the throne has to say, yes, now it's time. Mm-hmm. It's also an interesting idea. Kina talks about, a possible allusion to the idea that the sin has built up over generations, and it's almost like the people now in this day are receiving the full measure of punishment for how they've even benefited from and perpetuated, the sins of their ancestry, which is an uncomfortable idea. But I don't know.
When you take it really literally, yeah. But I think that marries well with kind of the pattern you identify of the system or the concept being repeated throughout history.
But also don't miss the hopeful part in verse 4, which is God's calling the people out of that.
Yeah.
This is the reality of what's going around you. Come out of that. Come out.
Yeah. Well, she boasts, I sit enthroned as queen. I'm not a widow. I will never mourn. For you astute Isaiah readers, you'll be familiar with this from Isaiah 47, where, again, Isaiah is talking to the literal Babylon from history. Now, therefore, hear this, you lover of pleasures, you who sit securely, who say in your heart, I am, and there is no one besides me. I shall not sit as a widow or know the loss of children. So, that's pretty, John, again, pretty
there it is,
verbatim drawing on another Isaiah.
Yep.
And I also found something where Rome was described this way, similar in some of her historians' books. I am alone and no one will ravage me. So
there you go.
So, something like that.
I mean, people to this day still call Rome the Eternal City. It's just
true. I for one, do not
feels like
in that
feels
name.
feels like you're asking for it.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like you haven't read Isaiah and Revelation.
Yes. That's why I just refer to Brisbane as the River City. Yeah.
Not the Eternal City.
No.
Well, the irony is there too because that river does some damage.
That is true. The Brown River City.
It sits on the water.
Yeah.
So the plagues will come in a single day, everything happening all at once. There's this kind of moment of concentrated and immediate judgment and kind of a finality to that, which kind of wraps up this pronouncement from heaven. And anything to say about that before we jump into the next section? Because this kind of takes us through then a very long response from some of the players that we've already been alluding to, the kings and the merchants. And that kind of takes us through the end of this chapter. So anything else to say on that first bit before we jump into that?
No, I don't think so.
Great. Well, in just a moment, Alex is going to bring us his dulcet tones to read again.
All right, picking up from verse 9, and we're going to go all the way to the end of chapter 18. When the kings of the earth who committed adultery with her and shared her luxury see the smoke of her burning, they will weep and mourn over her. Terrified at her torment, they will stand far off and cry, Woe, woe to you, great city, you mighty city of Babylon. In 1 hour your doom has come. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargoes anymore. Cargoes of gold, silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen, purple silk and scarlet cloth, every sort of citron wood and articles of every kind made of ivory, costly wood, bronze, iron and marble. Cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh and frankincense, of wine and olive oil, of fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and carriages, and human beings sold as slaves. They will say, the fruit you longed for is gone from you. All your luxury and splendor have vanished, never to be recovered. The merchants who sold these things and gained their wealth from her will stand far off, terrified at her torment. They will weep and mourn and cry out, Woe, woe to you, great city, dressed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and glittering with gold, precious stones and pearls. In 1 hour such great wealth has been brought to ruin. Every sea captain and all who travel by ship, the sailors and all who earn their living from the sea will stand far off. When they see the smoke of her burning, they will exclaim, Was there ever a city like this great city? They will throw dust on their heads and with weeping and mourning cry out, Woe, woe to you, great city, where all who had ships on the sea became rich through her wealth. In 1 hour she has been brought to ruin. Rejoice over her, you heavens. Rejoice, you people of God. Rejoice, apostles and prophets, for God has judged her with the judgment she imposed on you. Then a mighty angel picked up a boulder the size of a large millstone and threw it into the sea and said, with such violence the great city of Babylon will be thrown down, never to be found again. The music of harpists and musicians, pipers and trumpeters will never be heard in you again. No worker of any trade will ever be found in you again. The sound of a millstone will never be heard in you again. The light of a lamp will never shine in you again, and the voice of bridegroom and bride will never be heard in you again. Your merchants were the world's important people. By your magic spell all the nations were led astray. In her was found the blood of prophets and of God's holy people, of all who have been slaughtered on the earth.
Whew.
Bit of repetition in there.
Lots of items on that shopping list.
Yeah. It's a long sentence, hey?
It is. It is. Yeah. Wow. Lots. So we get the kings and then merchants, then sea merchants, and then an angel in quick succession, wrapping things up. And I get the sense by the end of this that this is now moved into a different period of time than we've seen before, because instead of it being cycles of the same thing, now
It's like the aftermath.
well, yeah, now we get these pronouncements of the no more pronouncements that this will not happen ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're now moving out of the could this be fulfilled in this city or that power structure or this power structure. And we're now seeing a glimpse of the other side of this being finished, and the things of the world now are starting to pass away. And
So
be no
future.
more.
Okay.
Do you think that's where
Rome
we're getting
plus,
to now?
plus, yeah.
Maybe.
I think in
Rome
a way,
minus.
yeah.
Rome's gone.
I think there's still a little sense where you can tie it to the current situation, but for overall, I think you're looking at the end of all
I think
things.
in as much as you can say with any certainty that, as empires rise and fall and as systems rise and fall, that when they fall, that it is justice, right? Then I think you can see this fulfilled in that sense historically. But I do tend to agree with the view that, if Rome has been a stand-in for that kind of summation of the demonic power taking hold of worldly powers and oppressing the world, that, yes, now we're seeing what happens when that is finally done away with.
That there will come a time where that's done away with, But that jumps to the end. Let's not jump all the way to the end of this chapter yet. There's lots of interesting things in between.
These three groups of people who had such a fun time in the city of evil now don't want to be anywhere near it, standing far off.
A bunch of cowards.
Weeping
we're
and
all
mourning.
in and now we're away, Kings who don't act in a very kingly manner.
No.
Yeah. It's almost like they're mocking it as well.
I read it as they're just scared. They're just cowards.
but I mean,
the sea
in
captains,
the woes,
sea captains in particular, they're like, "Hey, you saints and prophets, this is great for you guys." Hey,
yeah. It's weird.
What about us? Yeah.
Not to diminish the significance, but it does feel like the chorus comes on to kind of wrap it up, and we get the kind of the exposition happening of what's going on now in the different voices of these different figures. Yeah. So, I mean, the smoke of. Oh, sorry, you go.
I was going to say the common theme is obviously they're mourning the loss of their wealth and their power.
Yeah.
And the structures that enable them.
And the structures that enable them. And the fact that they will never have these opportunities again. They are destitute in the full sense of the word. And I think to hammer home what I think we've been talking about since the start of the book, because some of this did start to come out in especially the chapters 2 and 3 and the messages to the churches, this idea that it's not just an immoral system in the sense that people are quote unquote doing the wrong thing, but that this oppression comes in every facet of life, whether it's the law, whether it's justice or the lack of justice, whether it's economic mistreatment and exploitation. I think that really comes out in this section, and that shopping list, as you put it, is kind of like really it floors you a little bit, especially the last bit. You've got this list of all these kind of luxury items, and all of them are expensive goods. Even the flour and wheat are fine, right?
Correct,
These are the height of luxury that you can get. All these things that these kings and merchants and captains were worried about, and at the end of this list is the trade in human lives as well. It really encapsulates kind of the height of greed and sin that flowed like blood through the veins of this city.
It does. And so we're definitely seeing this wrapped up now into this is its culmination of all of these things finishing and kind of wrapping a fairly neat bow, because it transitions, as you said, when the sea captains come in, they start going, oh, actually, this has turned out pretty well for all those people who way back at the start were martyred, whose blood was crying out saying, when will we be vindicated? Like, we're seeing this vindication coming by the very thing that was enslaving people being judged, being found wanting, and being removed. But I was going to say the smoke of her burning does sound very much like what we see in Genesis with the judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah.
Ezekiel
this kind
as
of
well.
Ezekiel, the
Gog.
even that
Gog.
phrase sounds like, the smoke of their burning is an Old Testament kind of idiom.
Yeah.
The woe, the Bible says, alas, alas, your judgment's come in a single hour. Is this the single hour that we had back in chapter 17? The kings get an hour?
Potentially, yeah. Yeah, I guess.
Yep. This kind of wrapping up of judgment. There's more too, I think, not just what you said, Chris, as an indicative list of very expensive things, but very similar again to Ezekiel talking about the king of Tyre, these kind of this opulence and the
precious stones and
the completeness of the world's richness, like as it's expansive and as wide and broad, it incorporates everything you can think of. This is what's being finished and judged,
and they're getting thrown down as well. I think that's a bit ties in with that passage too.
There's so many allusions to the Old Testament here. It's probably worth getting yourself a commentary and going through. Jeremiah 51 again. We've got Ezekiel 27. We've got Daniel 5 with the swift judgment coming. We've got Genesis 19 with Sodom, as I was talking about before. There's even in Joshua, there's pictures of the ancient morning with throwing dust on your heads and that kind of stuff. There's so much in here, which is kind of bringing this, all of the figurative imagery of God's conquest of things that stand in opposition to him, God's judgment that brings vindication and space for his covenant people, God's throwing down of worldly powers. All of it's just, all of these motifs throughout all of Scripture are being kind of wrapped up in this moment.
Seems pretty appropriate. It's towards the end.
Correct. Yeah, that's why I think it is actually, we're seeing now the transition into the new and to the unknown. This is not the cycles of the worldly power, but this is that finally being completed and shut down and decommissioned so that something new can come to replace it. And I get the sense as I read from here through to the end, there's almost an establishing of a vacuum. Like, we're going to wipe it all away before anything new starts. So for me, this is, we talk about in Scripture, there's the continuity between before and after, and old and new, and old covenant and new covenant, and current creation and new creation. And there's the discontinuity where things stop and things end. And I think we're coming to that discontinuity point right now, where we're going to see all the old things that aren't going to be preserved stopping and shutting down and closing and being finished and being wrapped up and ended.
Winding down the company.
It does feel like that, particularly after the millstone's thrown in.
Yes, the millstone.
Talk about the millstone. Or do we need to talk about the sea captains or the other merchants?
I think it's
significant about that.
Not really. They're pretty much a mirror of each other, the merchants and the sea captains. It's just the sea captains add the little, like you mentioned, the rejoice. Rejoice refrain, which they,
one thing I did notice reading through, which never struck me before, is I always imagined the sea captains in this scene on their boats, but then it says they throw dust on their heads. Where did they get the dust from?
Buckets of dust on deck, or they're on land.
I've got a jar of dirt, sort of,
Told you, like show chins. But again, having just read through Tom Holland's History of Rome, it just sounds again like the boats off the shore while Vesuvius is erupting. It's so evocative. So for the people hearing this in the first time, they would have gone, I know exactly what's going on. I know the feeling of that complete destruction, absolute abject horror of standing at a distance and knowing everything's dead. So, quite powerful imagery.
Millstone?
The millstone,
Well, what do we know about millstones? Firstly, let's talk about how it's a motive for judgment in the Old Testament.
Have you ever used a millstone, Alex?
No, I'm not really built for that kind of work.
You can get small ones, but I think in this case, this is a big one.
I think I'd probably need a small one.
As I read in the commentaries I was doing, because this is not common knowledge to me, there was often small hand millstones, which someone would use in a household. Often the lady of the house would mill some flour. But this is one of the ones which is donkey-driven that are often used in a large format, so they're very big, very heavy. Not the kind of thing you would throw to someone and expect that they could float.
So in summary, a millstone is a very, very heavy big stone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's a stone that's used for grinding and crushing
Yeah, but
flour.
it is very big and heavy.
It
though.
can be very big and heavy, and in this case, it probably is. Yes.
Yeah.
It
In
just
the Old
reminds
Testament,
me,
though.
It just reminds me of the joke, what do you throw to a drowning bass player? His amp. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Big and heavy and
Okay.
weighty
I was
and drags you
the
down to
answer
the bottom.
millstone?
Yeah,
'Cause
no.
it's-
It's like a millstone. Yeah.
Okay. In the Old Testament, a millstone is it's a motif for judgment
Yeah.
in a few situations. You might be familiar with the rather comical but tragic story of who is it in Judges who gets hit by the millstone? The lady drops it, and is it, can't remember his name, kills him.
Yes, lands on his head.
Yeah, lands on his head and he dies.
I want to say JL, but
No, jail drives the
Joe-
tent
the
peg.
tent
through.
But
yeah,
there's the
Sisera.
woman's not named, but the man, the guy
Yes.
who he's not one of the judges, but he's like
One of the bad guys.
Yeah, he's one of the bad guys.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Chris is looking it
yeah,
up.
I'll
yeah.
look it up.
It's
I'll
bad.
maintain eye contact with you, Alex. So you've got someone to talk
Okay.
to. Chris can look it up.
I'm now going to look away from your eyes and look at my laptop to read
Okay.
this verse from Jeremiah 51. Thus shall Babylon sink, to rise no more, because of the disasters that I am bringing on her. Sinking,
Yeah.
millstone, pretty evocative there. But yeah,
And again, Jesus talks about those who
Yeah.
would harm little ones.
Yeah.
It'd be better for them to have a millstone hung around their neck
Yeah.
and been thrown
Yeah,
into the
exactly.
sea. So it is a metaphor of judgment.
Yeah.
But I think also the crushing sense that
yes,
this
definitely
grinds and
Yeah.
crushes.
And in that Jeremiah example, in the story, he literally ties a stone to that message and throws it in the Euphrates for Babylon. So
Yeah.
pretty.
Lots of Jeremiah 51 in this.
Oh
section.
yeah.
Is it Abimelech?
I was going to
Abimelech.
say Abimelech, but I was like, I don't want to sound silly. I should have just said
I
it.
guess you could have guessed him. You made me look better.
Now no one's going to believe me either.
Yeah, should have said that.
I was going to say it.
There we go.
There we go. That's the millstone.
The
So
millstone.
yeah, but
Yep.
like you said, Joe, that kind of discontinuity, like you can't. The
the
millstone's not going to
finality.
untie. It's at the bottom
Yeah.
of the sea. It's done. Yeah.
Hey, no one bringing it up.
Yeah.
And then we get these things that are now no more, things that are silenced.
Never
Again,
to be found again.
one commentary kind of alluding to Ezekiel 26. This is
Yep.
the cultural sounds being silenced. All the things that would happen in a society are shutting down, total cultural, societal shutdown and death.
And we get a few as well that we will see as we come into the final chapters of Revelation, are nice little mirrors. The light of a lamp will never shine in you
Yep.
again, and the voice of bridegroom and bride will never be heard in you again.
Yep.
Quite pointedly will be mirrored in the final chapters of Revelation as the things that do endure forever in the New Jerusalem. So
I'm so sorry. I just need to share the AI overview of the millstone incident with Judges. Just as one bit. It provides biblical context, which is great. Divine judgment. The event highlights the theme of God's justice, where natural occurrences, like a falling millstone, become the means for divine judgment. Yes, famously
natural
millstones
occurrence.
naturally fall all the time.
Particularly,
Yeah.
there's
when women just drop them from...
There's a park near my house, which if you walk through it in July, you're in danger of millstones falling on
Oh,
you.
wow, yeah. There
They're
you go.
particularly ripe in that season. So weird. We get the great ones, the merchants, the great ones of the earth. Again, I think being played off against the great ones of faith earlier
Yes,
in
yes,
Revelation.
Yes.
They're all
Yeah.
done. One commentary went off on a very long, I think this might have been Keena alluded to it, on a very long excursus around the books of sorcery that were found in the Ephesian church.
Yeah, with the magic
Which
spell
comes
thing.
up in
Yeah.
Acts where they burn 50,000 silver pieces worth of magic books in Acts. Yeah, this is alluded to that. It's just really the one down of all those things, and really we see at the end here the judgment cycle ending.
Yep.
So we have the close of all of these seals, all of these bowls, all of these trumpets. It's all wrapped up now and ended.
Yeah.
And so that whole huge middle section that we've been going through ends at the end of chapter 18, with Babylon's charge of righteous blood on their hands. This is done. Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of our passage today. Anything more to say on this moving forward?
Well, it does end on a huge down, but in the text, the very next verse is a massive then upswing. We have this really heavy moment of finality, which is countered with a revelation then of what's happening in God's space. So it becomes quite hopeful at this point.
Yeah, I think as horrific and intense as the scene is, ultimately this this judgment is for the good of the world, because, as Joe has said, all the evil things, all the strands that have kept human beings, as the intended image bearers of God, bound and oppressed in idolatry and unable to fulfill that function, have now been done away with. And all of a sudden we're about to see the new life and the new creation and the new taking up of that vocation about to spring into being. So that's exciting.
It is. It is.
Well, definitely stay tuned for our next episode, because it'll be a very big one. We've got the 1,000 years in there as well.
It's a long episode.
It's going to be a long episode with a lot of fun things to talk about. So if you've ever been confused by the words post-millennial, premillennial, amillennial, and all sorts of those kind of things,
Alex will unpack it all for you.
It'll be a solo episode.
Read up on all those things again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So stay tuned for that. If you have questions, please get in contact with us on our email, podcast@reallifechurch.org.au, or you can get in touch with us on Instagram or on Facebook at Bible Streams.
Yeah.
Or you can speak to me in person.
You can. And Alex's personal phone number is.
Yeah. And here are my credit card details. But yes, thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Bible Streams. And please come back.